Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. That's too sweet. Anyway, continuing with retired numbers. And today, we're talking about the second number retired by the Calgary Flames. Yeah, it's been a while since we've talked about the Flames and their retired numbers, but this will be the first of probably two this year. But either way, despite this one being a good tale of hometown guy playing for the hometown team, it's also a good tale of a smaller butterfly-style goalie who was an integral part of that same hometown team's two Stanley Cup runs he was in. Even if only one of them had an ideal result, the fact that they even went to two, that's better than most players can say. Today, we're talking about the number 30, which was worn in Calgary by Mike Vernon. So let's talk about it. Alright, so Mike Vernon's 13-year career with the Calgary Flames begins on June 10th, 1981, when Vernon was drafted 56th overall, or the 14th pick in the third round, whatever you prefer, in the 1981 NHL entry draft. Now, originally, this pick belonged to the Boston Bruins, who sent this pick along with their second round pick in the 1980 NHL draft on a trade on June 2nd, 1980. Now, at the time Vernon was drafted, the Flames had only been in Calgary for 1 year at this point, having come over from Atlanta after the 1979-80 season. So, being Vernon was from Calgary, playing for the Flames, that's pretty awesome in itself. Now, Vernon's first game for the Calgary Flames would come during the 1982-83 season on December 12th, 1982, where he would let in 6 goals in his first NHL loss, before playing in another loss 6 days later. Now, Vernon would finish the season 0-2 with a .761 save percentage and a 6.60 goals against average. Ouch! Now he would have one start in the 1983-84 season before being sent to the Flames' AHL affiliate for further conditioning. And this is where the Flames and their long-term development would ultimately be a thing of beauty. After almost 2 full years in the AHL, Vernon would cement his place on the Flames roster full-time on January 9th, 1986, winning his first NHL game against the Vancouver Canucks. Now remember that team, they seem to play a lot in this story. And Vernon would collect his first of 13 shutouts with the Flames on February 21st, 1986, against those same Vancouver Canucks. Now, all told, Vernon would finish with a 9-3-3 record with a .875 goals against average and a 3.39 save percentage with 1 shutout and 1 assist in 18 games played to help the Flames advance to the playoffs. Now, remember, at this point, the Flames had not missed the playoffs since relocating. Just putting that out there. Now, in said playoffs, the Flames would avenge their playoff loss from the season before, sweeping the Winnipeg Jets in 3 games, preliminary round, before meeting the reigning, defending, and 2-time Stanley Cup champs and Battle of Alberta counterparts in the Edmonton Oilers, with this series being very back and forth. And it would take a lucky bounce to help send the Flames to meet the St. Louis Blues in another series, another very back and forth series, might I add, also going 7 games, with the Flames taking Game 7 to advance the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in franchise history. And while the Flames were riding momentum with a hot new young goalie in the net, the Montreal Canadiens had their own hot young rookie goalie in the net, some guy named Patrick Waugh, who kept the Canadiens hot to this point. And even though the Flames did win Game 1, the Canadiens just had to keep the Flames right at bay, and did so to keep them losing for the next 4 straight games, as the Flames would lose the Stanley Cup in 5, with Vernon putting up a 12-9 record in 21 games played with a .875 save percentage and a 3.39 goals against average. Now, aside from losing the Cup, one would say it was a pretty good first year. The 1986-87 season would see Vernon solidify his spot as a starting goalie in Calgary, as he would finish with 30 wins in 54 games. Now, those 30 wins would see him ranked third amongst goalies in the win department. Now, in those 54 games, Vernon would go 30, 21, and 1 with a .883 save percentage, a 3.61 goals against, 1 shutout, and 2 assists. And of course, the Flames would advance to the playoffs, looking to get on the opposite end of the Stanley Cup Finals. The Winnipeg Jets, however, well, they had other ideas, eliminating the Flames in 5, with Vernon posting a 2-3 record with a .882 save percentage and 3.65 goals against. That's ouch. The 1987-88 would be a year for the Flames. Now, for Vernon, this year would see him playing his first of 5 NHL All-Star games as a Flame, and in a career-high 64 games played, he would put up a 39, 16, and 7 record with a .8775 save percentage and 3.54 goals against, and a career-high 7 assists. And those 39 wins were also a career high, and second in the league, one behind Grant Fuhr for top spot. Now, as for the Flames, well, not only did they win their first Smythe Division championship, but they also win their first President's Trophy with the best record in the league. Now, in the playoffs, the Flames showed why they were favorites early on, outscoring and eliminating the Los Angeles Kings in 5 games by a margin of 30-18, where those 30 goals still stand as a league record for most goals in a 5-game series, before being eliminated by the reigning, defending, and eventual Stanley Cup champions in the Edmonton Oilers in a 4-game sweep. Now, Vernon will put up a 4-4 record in 9 games with a .838 save percentage, a 3.98 goals against average, and 2 assists. So, as long as you can get past the Oilers, you're doing okay, but when you run into the Oilers, that's when you run into problems. The 1988-89 season was, if not for lack of a better term, better than the 87-88 season. If I said they had a year in 87-88, this was the year, all capital letters, underlined, bold, italic, whatever you want to put on it. Not only did they win their second Smythe Division and second President's Trophy in a row, but the team would also set franchise records in wins with 54 and points with 117, records that still stand as of this recording. Now, for Vernon, he would finally lead the league in wins, putting up a 37, 6, and 5 record in 52 games to go with a .897 save percentage, a 2.66 goals against, which was second in the league, as well as 4 assists. So he's getting very good at those saves and keeping the goals out. Now in the playoffs, the Flames will go full 7 games against the Vancouver Canucks, which saw Vancouver win Game 1 in overtime by a 4-3 score, but ironically enough, would see the Flames win Game 7 by a 4-3 score in overtime, before sweeping the Los Angeles Kings, this time not scoring 30 in the series, but, before facing and eliminating the Chicago Blackhawks in 5 games to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals for the second time in 4 years. Now, as for your finalists, well, this would be a rematch of the previous Cup run from 1986, facing Patrick Waugh and the Montreal Canadiens. Only this time around, both Waugh and Vernon aren't rookies at this point, having the benefit of a couple years behind them. And for the first 4 games, it was a pretty evenly matched series, including a double overtime win in Game 3, but for Games 5 and 6, the Flames managed to hold the Canadiens at bay, avenging their 1986 loss by winning Games 5 and 6 to give the Calgary Flames their first and, to date, only Stanley Cup in franchise history. And in the 22 games Vernon played, he would put up a 16-5 record to go with a .905 save percentage, a 2.26 goals against, and 3 shutouts. He was pretty damn good in the playoffs. Now after the playoffs, Vernon would be a runner-up for the Vezina Trophy, losing it to that same Patrick Waugh he just beat for the Stanley Cup. But he would also be named to the NHL's second All-Star team. Now, that's what I would call a great year. The 1989-90 season would almost be like the 2 previous seasons. Almost. See, the Flames would win their 3rd Smythe Division championship in a row, but wouldn't win their third President's Trophy. They missed that one by 3 points. But Vernon would put up a 23, 14, and 9 record in 47 games played with a .870 save percentage, a 3.13 goals against, as well as 3 shutouts. Not quite in the top 3 in wins, but still winning regardless. In the playoffs, the Flames had that mentality of defending that Stanley Cup, but this year's version of the Los Angeles Kings had a much better offense than in previous years. I mean, I guess that would be the case with, that Gretzky guy who used to play at Edmonton but now plays in LA. Yeah. The Kings outscoring the Flames 29-24 in 6 games to cut the Flames' Stanley Cup defense short, with Vernon adding a 2-3 record in 6 games to go with a .872 save percentage and a 3.33 goals against. So, I mean, the thought was there to defend, but yeah, when you run into the Kings, it's not the same anymore. 1990-91 would ultimately be the start of the decline of sorts for the Flames. They'd still make the playoffs, don't get me wrong, they were still a competitive playoff team, but they would only finish Smythe in the second division. But Vernon would get back to near the top in terms of wins, putting up a 31, 19, and 3 record in 54 games with a .878 save percentage and a 3.31 goals against, 1 shutout, and 4 assists. Now in the playoffs, the Flames would end up meeting provincial rivals in the Edmonton Oilers in a 7-game Battle of Alberta. And despite falling behind 3-1, the Flames would bring the series to within 3 games each, winning a Game 6 overtime before Game 7, losing that in overtime to ultimately fall to the Oilers, with Vernon putting up a 3-4 record in it with 8.97 save percentage and a 2.95 goals against. So even without Gretzky, the Oilers still managed to take the Flames out. It sucks. Now the 91-92 season would be a kind of an off year for the Flames, as they would fail to make the playoffs for the first time since they moved to Calgary. That's an 11-year run. To put it in a roundabout, matter-of-fact term, it was the 1974-75 season when the Flames last missed the playoffs, and that was when, again, they were still playing in Atlanta. Now, in saying that, it would also be an off year for Vernon, as in 63 games, he would set a career high in losses with a 24, 30, and 9 record to go with a 8.883 save percentage, a 3.58 goals against, and match his career high with 7 assists. So even if you're not winning, you're still putting up assists. That's better than nothing. The 1992-93 season would see the Flames reverse their fortunes, finishing second in the Smythe division, making the playoffs after a year away. Now, along the way, Vernon would record his 200th career win on November 14th, 1992 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, as well as play in his 5th and final NHL All-Star game as a member of the Calgary Flames. Now, Vernon would match his career high in 64 games played, putting up a 29, 26, and 9 record with a .887 save percentage, a 3.26 goals against, 2 shutouts, and 2 assists. Now, in the playoffs, the Flames would once again draw the offensive juggernaut that was the Los Angeles Kings, and this year they were no joke, being outscored 33-28 and eliminated in 6 by the eventual Stanley Cup finalists, with Vernon playing in 4 games, putting up a 1-1 record with a horrid .815 save percentage and an even worse 6 goals against. He was cooked. He was left out on the barbecue, and they took full advantage of it. 1993-94 would see the NHL realign to a more geographically aligned division, putting the old Smythe division in the new Pacific division, which seemed to benefit the Flames as they would finish first in the Pacific division for their first division championship since 1990. Now, Vernon would only play in 48 games, putting up a 26, 17, and 5 record with a .892 save percentage and a 2.81 goals against to go with 3 shutouts. So, not bad. Now, in the playoffs, the Flames managed to jump to a 3-1 series lead against the Vancouver Canucks before somehow managing to lose the next 3 games, all in overtime, with Vernon putting up a 4-3 record, a 3-4 record, with a .895 save percentage and a 2.96 goals against average to the eventual Stanley Cup finalists. Now, unfortunately, this would be the last time Vernon would make the playoffs with the Calgary Flames. And it would be during this offseason and before the lockout of the 94-95 season that the Flames felt they needed to make a change in the net and give up-and-coming goalie Trevor Kidd a shot. So the decision was made on June 29th, 1994 to trade Mike Vernon to the Detroit Red Wings for Steve Chason. And normally this would be where our story would end. But we're not done yet. So after 3 years in Detroit, which included 2 more trips to the Stanley Cup Finals, which ultimately resulted in 1 more Stanley Cup, a Conn Smythe Trophy, and a William M. Jennings Trophy, as well as 2 and a bit very productive seasons in San Jose, as well as 34 games with the Florida Panthers, Vernon would find himself again losing a position to Trevor Kidd, as the Panthers would leave Vernon unprotected for the 2000 expansion draft on June 23rd, 2000. Now this would be where Minnesota and Columbus were selecting their rosters, and it would see Vernon selected by the Minnesota Wild. Now, Vernon didn't really have a chance to settle in to the state of hockey as far as, the benefit of actually looking at places, because he was traded the exact same day back to the Calgary Flames for an 8th round pick in the 2001 NHL entry draft, as well as Dan Cavanaugh. Now, upon hearing this, Vernon wasn't sure if this was actually true or if this was just a joke, but he didn't say no to the comeback. Now, going into the 2000-2001 season, the Flames hadn't made the playoffs since 1996, and the version of Mike Vernon coming back to Calgary was not the same version of Mike Vernon that helped take the Flames to 2 Stanley Cup runs. But Vernon did manage to play 41 games, putting up a 12-23-5 record, along with a .883 save percentage, a 3.23 goals against average, 3 shutouts, and 1 assist. So he can still win, provided he's got a good defense in front of him, but the Flames again would miss the playoffs. The 2001-2002 season would be Vernon's last season in the NHL and would only see Vernon play in 18 games, a number he hadn't played since the 85-86 season. Along the way, Vernon managed to collect his last NHL shutout on December 10th, 2001, against none other than the Detroit Red Wings. So not only did he come full circle, he beat the team he was traded to the first time. That's gotta be something good. Now again, the Flames would miss the playoffs, and Vernon would add a 2-9-1 record with a .889 save percentage and a 2.76 goals against with 1 shutout, and 3 assists for good measure. So, with the Calgary Flames not really getting any better at this point in time, and with Vernon not playing like he was used to playing in the late 80s, early mid-90s, Vernon made the decision on September 13th, 2002 to announce his retirement. And that was as the hometown goalie on the hometown team. Now, upon his retirement, most of, if not all his statisticals were team records, most of which have since been broken, but he retired as the Flames win leader, best goals against, all that. So that's essentially the story of Mike Vernon and the number 30 in Calgary. So let's talk some numbers. All right, so for his time as a Calgary Flame, he would play in 527 games, put up 262 wins, 188 losses, 57 ties, to go with 13 shutouts for a career record, 883 save percentage, a 3.27 goals against average, and 34 assists. Now if we're talking playoffs, here's where he's still got some team records. Team record 81 game played, to go with his team record 43 wins, as well as his team record 33 losses, 3 shutouts, a .887 save percentage, a 3.02 goals against average, and 3 assists in the playoffs. He was named to the NHL's second NHL All-Star team in 1989. He played in 5 NHL All-Star games in 1988, 1989, 1990, 1991, and 1993. He also led the NHL in wins with 37 in 1989, and let's not forget that Stanley Cup he won with Calgary in 1989. He was nominated to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2023 and had his number retired by the Calgary Flames on February 6th, 2007. So here's my opinion of the guy. So in terms of the butterfly style kind of goalie, he was good. In terms of the small goalie, he was one of the best. I mean, he was only 5'9", so he was pretty small by goalie standards, but his speed and the size he had and the way he was able to react to the puck when it came his way, 9 times out of 10, most times you were getting a good save out of him. And the fact that he was an offensive goalie, I mean, his 34 assists in Calgary will tell you that. Just as important as the offense to a lot of the Flames' success. And, I mean, yeah, he played with McInnes in front of him. That doesn't matter. Ultimately, the goalie's last line of defense, right? And when Vernon was on, and there was no stopping him. It's a shame that Calgary's best goalies don't seem to last that long, but I mean, if Vernon could have played a couple more in his prime seasons in Calgary, it could have been a much different story in terms of the results the Flames saw in the later 90s, but alas, it is what it is, right? Either way, one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie, the Flames have ever had. So that was another one of them Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. And if you have made it to this point, feel free to give me that thumbs up. I think it's fair. You're this far. You're obviously digging what I'm doing. You just want to say, hey, throw that thumbs up. That'd be greatly appreciated. If you want that red button that says subscribe all over it, come on, you know you want to. I know you want to. The algorithm knows you want to. And for the 281 that have come along for this ride, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. But if you want, there's that link in the description that'll take you to my Facebook page. I'd love to build an audience there. So moving forward, as far as retired numbers is concerned, oh, trust me, there's a lot on the plate. But I gotta let you know, I'm hitting giants. I'm hitting greats. So a lot of what's going to come down the pipe as far as retired numbers is concerned is going to be lengthy. You've been warned. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be looking for more videos from Trev. Data.